My name is Angel, and you'll be watching the Ugandan Boy podcast. 1, 2, 3, let's go.
I'm from a beautiful place, the Pearl of Africa. Hailing with a 256, it's in my blood. That's a gem where the mountains rise. With stories untold, the tapestry of cultures unfolding, so vibrant and bold. A symphony of stars, a celestial light. The drums beating, echoing through the night. Just like a beacon of light, a reflection that's coming up from the Nile. I'm flowing straight into the heart of Africa with timeless stories untold. What's up, dog?
Kabera Angel, welcome to my podcast.
Thank you. I've been waiting to come on the famous Ugandan Boy pod.
Yeah. What famous? It's debatable, but I'll take it.
Famous to me.
Okay.
To me.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So we've had a lot of behind the scenes, a lot of things going on to produce this podcast for you, the listeners. You'll never know, or you won't even have an idea on what goes on behind the scenes to bring this to you. So when you're criticizing things, have some grace on us because we go through a lot. But besides that, I'm so happy and excited to have you on the podcast. How is life?
Oh my. Life is good. It's okay. I don't know how to answer that question in a short way, but it's good. Creating, which is such a privilege to create and have the liberty to create. Life is good.
Okay. I mean, when I ask people the question, how is life? Usually I'm trying to change that narrative of like, I'm good. Because 90% out of time, you ask people, how are you doing? I'm good. Even if they have like issues. But there's one time I had somebody on the podcast, I asked him how is life? And this guy gave me like a whole paragraph of like the definition, what that means to him. And I like that because that's the whole purpose of a podcast. Like when I'm given time to like, I just want to like give it all out. But I like the extra little bit that you give to us. So that means a lot. Ever since I met you, you're one of the people I really wanted to host on the podcast, to sit down and have a conversation. I met you 2 days. The first day I met you and the last day I met you. The first day I met you was before my live podcast. Yeah. And then the last day I met you was on the live podcast. By the way, speaking of that, thank you for being part of my live show. How was that for you? We've never talked about it ever since it ended.
It was a pleasure, first of all, to be in a space, like to see someone who's so dedicated to what they're doing. Like, I was like, no, where is this person? Because when you called me at the initial venue you wanted to have, I was like, where's all of this fire coming from? Like, why is this person so invested in this thing? And then I go to the live podcast and the conversation we were having, it was a good experience, an eye-opening experience I will go very deep, but it was an eye-opening experience to how invested am I in what I'm doing, especially in continuing the conversation, because even the topic of the pod was actually for other creators. It wasn't about, I'm Bonnie, cool aerospace engineer. You're an aerospace engineer, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't about you. It was about the craft. And for one man to pull all of that, for me, not to get mushy and all, but it was inspiring. Yeah.
No, I appreciate. I love that. I never really got time, and this is the first time I'm talking about it ever since it ended, because I never reflected. Okay, I got messages from people who attended, like, oh, it was amazing, but like talking to my panelists or people, my co-hosts, my guests who were there. Yeah. I liked it. I liked it to see all the content creators come together and you guys showing up. It was amazing, and I love connections. How we got connected, and now you are here. We're doing a podcast.
Wonderful.
And your performance too. Like, you were not only just a guest, you performed the famous Njabala. It was great. I felt bad because I came back, after we had done everything, everybody wants to say hi. I was like, you know what? No, I'm going to go watch Angel perform, because I've seen it on YouTube. I've seen it on social media. I want to sit there and see her perform. So I sat there for like about 10 minutes. and somebody comes, hey, somebody wants to say hi to you. Hey, somebody wants to do this. I was like, oh my God, I just sat down to enjoy this moment. But it was cool to see you performing your element. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
So we're going to start from your journey, how I met you, through what I met you through. I may not mention a lot of names, but you know how I got connected to you. I got connected to you because I wanted you to be my... No, I got connected to you because initially where I wanted to have my live podcast, I reached out for the venue. I was like, oh, cool. We have this person who does our podcast. Would you be interested in having them on your live show? I was like, yeah, cool. I can turn it down. And that's how I got connected to you. And we started talking and asked you for that. What was your journey like? Because I know you were a podcaster. What was your journey into getting into podcasting at that time when I met you?
So it's a very long story, but I wanted to be plugged into a space where I can learn how to manage some sort of hub or organization, because that's my long time goal, right? Mm-hmm. So I spoke to a friend of mine and I was like, I really need to learn. I need to be under people who are running this big organization and I want to learn from them. And then they're like, oh, we have an opening here. Nobody's using this space. And we need someone to do it. And we also need someone to host our podcast. And so I was down for it because it's also what I was studying, journalism and communication. So it was a great avenue to practice, but also the podcast in itself was about something that I am so passionate about, which is creating avenues where creatives and creators are able to speak and share knowledge, right? Mm-hmm, so I think that ecosystem of circumstances kind of led to that. I was looking for a place to learn because I was manning a podcast studio, youngest person on that team. Things like Calendly, learning how to edit on Logic, learning how to deal with different people, being tasked to monetize and things like that. And, I went to the person and I think I didn't know what I was asking for. I was like, I want to learn so much. Mm-hmm. They gave me I learned. Yeah. Dealing with people is crazy. Dealing with creatives is crazy. But that's what led me to then I discover podcasting. I was like, oh, this thing is actually really cool. It's, the freedom to, I don't need permission from a media house or what. I can just go on there and have genuine conversations that people are not having. And so I just jumped on the train and it's an amazing journey and an amazing thing to do. Yeah, that's how I got into it.
I like it because not only people look at it, I don't know what people see when they see like an opportunity of something, of a podcast. But to me, I look at everything, even the things you don't see come out of that. Like, I don't think if you were not there, I wouldn't have met you. Like, if you were not in that place at that time. But like, I met you and then you're part of my live show. And then now we're part of doing a podcast. So anytime there's an opportunity, I'll take it. And it's pretty cool. I've been following you on social media. We follow each other on like a lot of platforms. And you've been running these TikTok series. I watch all of them, just so you know. And I think there's one where you will bring it up to the viewers where you wanted to do either a community podcast or you just continue to do a TikTok series. Have you come down to a solution what you want to do? And if you want to start your own podcast, where are you at with that now?
I mean, the ultimate goal is to have my own podcast. The thing is, I have one analysis paralysis where I overthink things. I need to have, like, you see how we're here with all of these guys behind the scenes, cameras, lights, action. So like I overthink things. And I think that's why I started from TikTok, where I said, you know what? No concept, not this time. No sponsors or what. I'm just going to start and tell these stories. And as we gather momentum, resources, opportunities, then it can evolve into a podcast. But the goal is a podcast, definitely a podcast.
I mean, I think you can do it because that's how I started my own, and I don't have the guys behind me. Literally, in my studio, it's just me and my camera, my phone, and you
Yeah.
so and the lights. So it's doable. You
Yeah.
can do it even when you're on your own. I mean, it might be a little costly, like for the equipments and stuff. But I started with my phone.
Yeah.
I was not doing videos. I was using my phone and
Mm-hmm.
record my voice, and then later on, I was like, "Oh, it would be cool to start a YouTube channel." So then I started a YouTube channel, and then I bought a camera. And so it takes time, but you have the content,
Yeah.
you have the ability and the consistency, because I think you were in part 13 or some. There's one that there's a
Yeah.
longer one. There's a series of a longer one, but
The stories are long.
and those stories are funny. I'm gonna ask you to just give our listeners like a glimpse of what you talk about, because not everybody who is listening today follows you on social media or knows what the heck we're
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about, or maybe they want to know. But I have questions, specific questions for that. For those series that you're doing, you did one of like where you were trying to get scammed, and where you were trying to people not paying you, or people not considering Soets. But I want to start. Tell us a little bit, like maybe a summary of just like Poet X, the story of Poet X. What?
Let me
maybe you
remember
can.
Poet X. Oh, yes, Poet X.
I think Poet X was the one that you guys performed at the same event, and
Yes,
then
yes.
he asked you about like um did you get
Payment.
paid, or yeah.
Yeah.
So just give the listeners a hint about it, and then they will find the rest on TikTok.
So first of all, the poetry scene and spoken word scene is very young, filled with very young people and also very old people, right? So Poet X, we go and perform somewhere, but we are contracted by two different organizations to perform, right? So when I got there at the time, I was performing, so to speak, for free. I didn't get like a what is it called? A payment, yeah. So I was given like a transport refund, and then I left. I did my work and I left. So a couple of months later, I meet Poet X, and he's asking me about, oh, are you paid for this event? Oh, who? And then I kind of clarify and say, oh, me, I was paid, but I wasn't contracted by the organization that contracted you. So he starts budging me to check my email for an invoice, but I tell him, I got my money, so it was done. That door is closed. I check my email and I find an invoice. And so the story is the organization that had contracted Poet X had kind of given me like a token of appreciation. So now Poet X knew about this the whole time. And then we go through a whole rabbit hole of Poet X trying to convince me that there was a mistake in the system and that the money that I had received, or the invoice, was supposed to go to him. That's the story. Find more on my TikTok series.
I thought like when they asked you for your bank accounts and stuff, that they wanted you to put that information there so they can steal your money. Was that the case?
No. The thing is, for the money to reach my bank account, it had to be like, it couldn't be through another person's bank account or mobile money. It had to be sent to an account registered in my name. So I think that's what actually put a stop or ended Poet X's movie. And so he tries to go through this whole trying to convince me verbally that, oh, it's a mistake. When it enters your account, just send it to me and maybe I can give you a little bit. Yeah.
That's crazy, because you mentioned something like poetry is very young in Uganda, and people are trying to work hard, and people are being manipulated, like taken advantage of. And I saw one of the clips you posted there, like you go to an event, but like this person paid the DJs, pay the MCs, but they don't have a budget for the poets. Like they just want, hey, you can come showcase your work here or something like that, which is sad. But then the final one, the interesting one, was about Mr. Luwombo. I think Mr. Luwombo, who was sick.
Mr. Luwombo.
Yeah, give us a summary of that one too. And for the listeners, you need to go to TikTok, on her TikTok. You'll give them your username and they listen to these stories. And we'll be excited for you to start a podcast of these stories, because they're going to help a lot of other young poets, not even poets, people who are in the creative industry, to learn from these things in order not to be manipulated or taken advantage of.
Yeah, and that's actually why I started doing it, because I felt like where is the avenue that I'm going to go to? You know, you go to all of these associations and you're turned down, and these perpetrators are actually being protected. But Mr. Luwombo, Mr. Luwombo had the time of his life in COVID. Mr. Luwombo, according to his side of the story, he was sick with cancer and diabetes. And so that's how he would market his shows. So people would come, you know how poets and also just creatives in general had a really rough time during the COVID, you know, no concerts. It changed the industry, really. So people would come and support this guy, you know, to raise money for his medicine and things like that. So he would host a couple of shows and platform young people, you know, university students, high school students. You know, COVID, when kids are not in school, but they're in school, they're at home. So there's a lot of idle time. He would train them and, you know, you find like a 12-year-old kid is an executive producer of a show, a 14-year-old is scripting, things like that. So it looked really nice and fancy. He was securing partnerships with international organizations, apparently. And so as the shows progressed, people began to realize that, oh, where's the money going? You know, because this was COVID. And this person, I will give poet Mr. Luwombo credit. Mr. Luwombo really transformed how we see poetry, because after that, all poets were like, wow, we can actually monetize this thing. Though for him, he was more of like a scammer. So people start asking questions, where's our money going? And he gets defensive and kind of like shuns people and keeps quiet. But the thing with Mr. Luwombo, he's a master of exploitation. That's the truth, and manipulation. So in COVID, it was cancer and diabetes. But in the series, I talk about how we would meet and he would literally be drinking Fanta, eating pizza during rehearsals. And I'm like, but sir, you're sick with this very heavy disease. You're carrying tables. When it's time to count money, you have energy. Like, it's not giving cancer patient. It really isn't. So when we started to ask those questions, then we were the entitled people. We were over tarnishing his reputation. But yeah, for Mr. Luwombo, if you know, you know, like, majority of the poetry scene knows Mr. Luwombo for who he is. But of course, there are the newcomers all the time who he actually positions himself to get, who need to be made aware of these things. So yeah, that's Mr. Luwombo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is crazy. And I've seen a lot of these things happen in Uganda. And I like podcasts because we open other people's eyes and have not gone through it.
Yeah.
Or people who don't know. And that's why I like to bring guests from different avenues of life. Poets, musicians, because they talk about these challenges they go through, some of the things that help them to get there. But it reminds me of a lot of people. There's a lot of people on Instagram who are starting like children, like orphans, children page. Like, okay, we take care of these orphans. And they're just using the kids to get money for themselves.
For money. Yeah.
So it's a lot. It's everyone. People are trying to
crazy.
Make money in different ways.
Which is not exactly. And you know, the thing with poetry in Uganda, I will only speak for poetry and for Uganda, is the culture starts in school, right? So you have poetry clubs, arts and drama and things like that. So that's how the industry has been growing. We have the teen poetry slam. So these people are actually, so the people entering the industry, like myself, I was 15 when I started performing. And then I was 18 when I started being paid to perform, so to speak. So you get in really young and you're interacting with the Mr. Luwombos and the Poet X's of this world. So it's really important for us to speak up.
Yeah. And I appreciate that. When I saw that on your TikTok, I was like, hey, we need to talk about this on the podcast, because I think the world needs to hear this. And but I've loved interviewing poets on this podcast. I feel like this might not be don't quote me on the word I'm going to say, but like I feel intimidated. I feel like, no, respectful. Respectful would be the word, not intimidated, but like for poets, I feel like that's
nice.
You see people say, oh man, aerospace engineering, you guys are like smart, or doctors and stuff, but a poet is a smart person. Like, I put so much respect on poetry because they can come up with a word that you've never thought of. Like I'll speak for myself. Maybe I'm just the only one who's dumb, but like I put so much respect on poets, the way you look at their piece of work and be like, man, that is deep. Oh man, that is creative. So I respect all the poets out there because their work, it's a lot. It takes a lot to stand on the stage and recite a poem. But one of the things I picked interest in, I had never heard of Soetry ever till I met you. And I know there's a lot of people out there who still even don't know what Soetry is. How do you get into Soetry, and how did it start? Because I know some people know it, but there's a lot of people, even the listeners today, that don't know about Soetry. How did you get into Soetry, and how did that journey start?
So I got into Soetry from high school. This is in high school. I started performing poetry, but it was for competition's sake. So there's an annual competition called the Teen Poetry Slam, where we compete for a cash prize of 1 million Uganda shillings, which was a lot at that time, and bragging rights as well. So I got into that. Yes, I did in 2019.
I'm speaking to a millionaire right now. Okay, just so you know.
Yeah, in UGX though. I don't know if that counts. In UGX.
Okay.
So yeah, we would compete every single year, and I competed for 6 years. For 5. And then I also used to sing in church, right? And I was good at it. And people used to, I was passionate about both, but people really used to say, Angel, you should sing more. You should sing more. So in a way, trying to make me pick one of the two passions. And I said, no, but I want to do both, and I enjoy both. I have pursued both. I studied literature, still studied literature even through university. So I said, no, I'm going to fuse these two, and I'm going to really make an inquiry in what it takes or what it means to fuse them. So when I say Soetry, I don't mean like a poem with an instrumental in the background. No, it's the melody and the music is composed to match the words, right? So yeah, I started it as a form of defiance. I was like, no, I don't want to sing. I don't want to be a musician. I like this poetry thing. So let me make a thing of my own. And then I also started to see audiences, in the sense that poetry is an acquired taste. Not everybody gets it, right? So I used the music and the melody to carry the message, in a sense that, like Njabala, right? It's a piece on activism, but I performed it at conferences, I performed it in bars, at podcast live recordings, and people are dancing, but the message is being carried with this melody that we all relate to. So that's how I got into it. Mostly defiance. I wouldn't say I'm a defiant person, but I hate being put in a box. So I create my own circle or rhombus. I don't know. Yeah.
So do you think, are there other people in Uganda doing Soetry, the same thing that you do?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. First of all, I didn't invent it. Even the word, I didn't invent it. It's something that had been thrown around in the poetry community. But, Ebitontome, right? Are you a Muganda? Yeah. So Baganda no Ebitontome, Okwivuga, the taxi man at the park. Like, that's all Soetry. Like, that storytelling that heavily relies on devices of rhythm and rhyme and melody, that musicality. It's a very big part of African culture. So I wouldn't say like I am the only Soet. Yeah. People just don't know that they're Soets, but they're Soets. If that makes sense.
And it's crazy. It's crazy you picked out the one song that I was going to highlight. You have a lot of performances. You have a lot of songs that you've done. I've watched all your performances. When you performed at Judge the Poets, before my live show, actually, I watched that too. I like that stuff. I like the style of that. Like, and I picked out Njabala because that's a song that I came to see it at my live show to watch you perform, because I like it. The way you, and like that song, like we used to sing it in school. And I think when we had the live show, I remember Prem was whispering to you about something like that.
Yeah.
But the way you took it and then transformed it into, like, I think you mentioned somewhere your strength. So you use that Njabala to interpret something about the woman. And when you post it on your Instagram, you have all these women behind your voice of that Njabala.
Yeah.
What does that song mean to a woman out there? Or that performance?
That song, that's so him. That's so him.
Yeah, I couldn't find the word to call it, so I was like, a song, I said performance.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
It's okay. It's redefining womanhood. It's redefining all of these descriptions and definitions that have been thrown on women. It's taking back that definition of a woman and then rephrasing it and remolding it for yourself. That's why, because Njabala traditionally is about a domesticated abakazi bayera bati barima bati bafumba bati, but how about we say digging, not in the literal sense, but sweeping as a leader, as a world leader, right? These skills in the kitchen, that the kitchen is not necessarily that smoky room in your home, but the kitchen can be a world stage, or the kitchen can be, a CEO's office in a bank or something like that. So for me, Njabala was really to redefine how we raise the girl child, for the girl child to listen and hear that, okay, people are telling me sweep, cook, clean, but it can also be lead, make money, build, and also for the parents to know that it's not sweep, cook, clean, but it's also build, lead, enterprise, things like that. So it's just redefining the term and the being of a woman. Yeah, I can go on and on, but
no, that's really deep. That's really deep, and I think that's what I took away from it. Seeing like Winnie Byanyima, like people who can represent, like you put out there. I saw you performed at the African Wisdom Summit. Just so you know, Wake 256 was a guest on this podcast. Is one of a good friend. He's been a guest on here.
Yeah,
it was cool to see you guys share the same stage. How was that experience like, and how did you get an opportunity to be there?
Oh, it was a beautiful experience. How I got the opportunity, collaboration. Wake and I have performed a lot on several stages that people now, like, people can reach out to me and say, oh, we want you and Wake. Or when they reach out to Wake, they say, oh, we want you and Kabera. So sometimes people think we are like a duo and we move together. So I think that's what had happened on that particular Wisdom Summit. They reached out to Wake and they said, oh, get together with Kabera. This is the topic. This is what we want you guys to communicate. And do your thing. It's a beautiful experience, always working with people like Wake. I know we talk about how poetry is the ghetto and the industry is weird, but they're beautiful and amazing people as well. And for me, Wake comes at the top of the list. He's someone, he got into it before me, getting into the monetization game, performing in corporate, poets. I think Wake was one of the first poets to do that. So he kind of trained me how to package myself, and then we collaborate. If I get a gig, I can get something on audio composition, and he gets a little from that. But the experience was beautiful. It's intense. Friends and family and followers and haters of the Ugandan Boy podcast. Poetry is not easy because someone tells you, oh, we're having we're having a summit on wisdom and the fireplace. Please write a poem about that. We've been given a concept note of 15 pages. We need to compose something in 5 minutes that's going to engage the audience, that's going to send this message, that's going to also help us look good. So it's a lot of work, but it's a beautiful experience. And also, technically speaking, when you're working with someone whose style and you've had that experience before, we bounce off of each other's energy. Like, it's someone, when I just have to look at him and then I know, okay, we're saying this word together. And that friendship as well helps a lot, and the trust. But it was a beautiful experience. The Wisdom Summit in itself was a really cool thing. But yeah, working with Wake is always a pleasure.
Yeah, I think Wake is a great person. I enjoyed interviewing him on the podcast. I'd be remiss without talking about who the guys that came to my live show too. I'm gonna forget his name, but I just blanked out. Eduardo Kayondo
and Joff the poet.
Josh. Yeah, I usually confuse his name, Jeff the poet, to George the poet. I'll be remiss without mentioning those two guys, especially like Jeff the poet. He was a guest on my podcast too. That's how I got to know him.
Ooh.
And that guy, and this is what I'm saying, the podcast has helped me meet a lot of people I never thought of meeting. It's crazy, people think about money and all that and that, but for me, meeting people is priceless. There's no amount of money I would have paid to meet you, to get to know you, and to get to have you on the podcast. Jeff the poet, and he brought Kayondo with him. I was like, hey, I have this, you were talking about the duo. He's like, I have this friend, I can bring him with me. And then till today, I'll be sitting down there and then I'll say, hola, 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 yeah. I start singing Kayondo's song. I'm going to Zimbabwe. I like that performance. It was pretty cool. But those guys too, they did a great job at the live show. Have you performed with them too on some, have you had a duo or just sharing the stage together with them?
Yeah, I've performed with Joff. And then I'm going to feel really bad. But Eduardo and I are working on something, but life keeps happening all the time. It's like a project that's dragged. But I have worked with Eduardo when I have a few shows and I don't feel like playing the guitar. Eduardo comes and plays for me. Okay. And he's such an enthusiastic person. But I've worked with them. Yeah.
That's amazing. If people out there are never into poetry or Soetry, you should check it out. For me, it's something that calms me down, because usually when you guys do Soetry, it's just cooling down, listening to it, think about it. It's not there are days when you want the bang, 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 noise, but sometimes you need to hear something that will make you think, why is it like that? Why is it Njabala? What are they trying to say? It was amazing. So I love it. But we're going to be jumping back and forth to some of the things we're talking about, but I also feel bad for these people out there who are trying to break through with their with their craft, but they're also getting taken advantage of. You talked about something that touched me because, and this was on your TikTok too. Guys, if you don't go to her TikTok, you're missing out a lot of information. That's why I got all the stuff I'm talking about. We're going to tell you the TikTok name so you can find it out. But somebody getting insulted because you sent a quotation. Some people will know you and they don't respect you because of your age, but you invest, no matter what your age is, you took time to sit down and do this craft. Even if I'm two, if you want my services, you got to respect my services because I put time in it. Talk about that scenario of being insulted because you sent your quotation for somebody.
I think it all stems from, I like to look at it as people, their perceptions are their reality. And given that I got into this when I was really young, that gets to people. People cannot conceive that this young girl is now a woman with needs and with taxes and with, bread and butter, to put on her table. So from that experience, it was someone who I had interacted with when I was 15, 16, right? And then there's also the entitlement that comes with some mentors. I'm going to say some, where they come and they feel like they made you. And so they're entitled to your time and to your space. So for them, for that particular individual, it was insulting that I had sent him a quotation, even in the first place. Yet, it's that individual that asked me for my quotation. Like I was literally seated and I received a call and said, oh, we have this event. Oh, please send us your quotation. So why are you so bitter now that I've sent a quotation? But it stems from you get into it really young, and some people will always see you as the kid that you are and not the person that you have grown into. And that's something that I kind of made peace with, because I was raised by a village of strong men and women, right? Some I have had to distance myself from because of that. They still see me as this little girl in Aga Khan High School doing physics, chemistry, and coming to them on advice on how to, I really used to lean on mentors a lot. But there are some people who you outgrow. And for that case scenario, it was just purely this person has failed to grow with me. And so they still feel like, this young girl, I'm doing you a favor, right? So there's that entitlement from some people in the older generation that for my peace of mind, I'm just like, it is calm. Maybe this is universal redirection. Yeah, but he was and also in my series Bambi, I don't use the people's names.
Yeah.
Just to protect people's privacy.
When you use Mr. Luwamba, I was like, is it actually like the guy's name called Mr. Luwamba? You're brave.
No. Yeah, no. Is there someone called Luombo? That would be interesting. Yeah, but for that, it was...
I don't know any.
Just to let you know, yeah, that's how young the industry is. Like, you reach a level where now you are working with or competing, in quotes, with the people who trained you. And that is a thorn on some people's sides that they just cannot get over. Yeah, but it's a beautiful... Wouldn't change it for the world. Wouldn't change it.
I like when people respect, and I mentioned this before I asked you the question, like I like people to respect you, like no matter what, they need to see your hustle, everything that you've been doing, knowing that you have needs, knowing that you got other things to do, and they respect that on top of there's we can talk about it, you can give me what you think, and tell me what you think, but like there's no like, oh, this is what I'm giving you because this is what you deserve. You don't know what I deserve. Yeah. Because you don't know what I put
exactly.
in. Like, that's disrespectful, I think, for me.
Yeah. True. It is.
So, on March 29, 2022, you posted a picture. This picture is on your Instagram, and I think it's up there. It was the first, I don't know if it was the first time you did a political poetry. And down in the caption, there was, might go to exile in German or something like that. I was like, I need to ask you about like what was going through your head in that moment, and after you did that, and what happened to you? Did you end up going to Germany in exile or something?
Germany in exile? It was a comment?
No, it wasn't a comment. It was like, no, let me get it for you. I want to make sure I quote the right things. But no, it was it was, I think, part of the poetry that you did. So but I'll get it here real quick, don't worry. No, but that picture was like a police officer beating a woman.
I remember. Yeah.
So
I mean, that one, I mean, poetry, I write from experience, personal or secondary, it can be first-hand experience. And at that time, it was COVID, there was elections, a lot of violence, and inhuman. I was just like, are we living in a storybook? Are we living in some sort of fiction? Like, these things are happening. And so I wrote a poem about, first of all, it was actually for a competition. Okay. In high school, I was really motivated by those things. Like, my goal in life was to just win and get as many certificates at the time. But it was about, then the budget had just come out. The national budget had just come out. And then I analyzed where our country's priorities are. We're having people dying because there's no oxygen in our national referral hospital. We're having policemen going away, free after killing innocent people. So I wrote from that place of what the heck is going on. From the piece is called Today I Will Not Complain. So it's like an ironic piece where I twist, like, today I will not complain about the sleeping giants and pot bellies and potholes, you know. I will complain about, you know, the man with the briefcase and all of that. But it was really like all poems, just because that was a very intense time politically in Uganda. I was amazed by, like I said, reading a lot of books. You see these things in books, you know, African literature, and you're like, this was when you were fighting for independence. But this is stuff that was happening 2021, 2022. So that's where that poem came from just the experiences I had seen and just my outlets, like what on earth is going on. Yeah, I
was able to pull up the poem, and I think it was the second last stanza that says, "Today I have written a political poem. I wonder if they will send me to exile in Germany. I'm testing the waters, poking the sides." Where's the lie, though? Where's the lie? Yeah. So,
also, at the time, a couple of people had gone to exile. There's this guy, he has a very hard name. He wrote a book called The Greedy Barbarian. Yes, Kakwenza. He has a very hard name. I'm sorry for butchering his name. He had just been sent to exile. But at the time, I was young. And for me, that kind of excited me. I was like, let me write this poem and see, like, a free trip to Germany wouldn't hurt. I didn't quite understand the gravity of exile. You know, but that was a headspace.
No, I like it when we speak up. Like, I've also spoken up on things I'm not happy about, you know. I'm not going to say it in a disrespectful way. I'm not going to go and abuse somebody because I want to tell them how bad they are. But I'll speak up to you, hey, I'm not happy with this action. I'm not happy that the country is going through this. You just say what is on your heart. You can still complain about something in a nicer way, in a respectful way. I don't agree with people who abuse people on social media and stuff.
That's true. And you know, the beautiful thing about poetry and the beautiful thing about art, I'm going to plug a poetic play called Arrest the Poem. In poetry, the principle is you do not kind of judge the poet's feelings. You judge the poem, right? So in a sense, there's that safety behind the poem. It's like, it was just a poem, you know? Take it as you want to interpret it. So it's like, you can't arrest the poet because I'm just a vessel. You arrest the poem. That's just figuratively.
One last thing about poetry, because I have other questions I'm going to ask you that are not about poetry, but you have this sentence on your Instagram that says, it's a quote, it says, "Art will survive, we won't." What does that mean to you?
For me, it's what I use to humble myself and to always remind myself that it is the art that matters, not me. I'm not famous. I am not famous, Bambi. Not anywhere close. But
me, you are.
I really pray that. Thank you, but I would much rather you don't know who I am, but you know Njabala from top to bottom, right? Or I would much rather you know all of my work and you don't know who I am. And the question is not, hey, Angel Kabera, what work has she done? No, it's like, oh, Njabala, Mpuzi, who wrote Njabala? For me, that's the goal. That's success as a creative, for the work to come first, because I am just, you know, flesh and bone. To dust I shall return. So I want to have if I'm to leave anything, it has to be the art, because that's what's going to survive. That's the legacy. So for me, every time it's just a way to humble myself, because fame is unnatural, number one, and fame can get to you. Even at the slightest level, like in high school, I remember I went to Gayaza High School in my A level, and I was transitioning from an Aga Khan, from an international-ish school, and I was the it. person, you enter the school, you are winning 1 million shillings in poetry, the headmistress is inviting you to her home for tea, you're now a prefect. It got to me. And so in that season of reflection, I said, no, this is strange. It is the art first. Yeah.
I got a question that popped out in my head. What did you use the 1 million shillings for? How did you spend it?
So I spent it on my prom dress. Because I got it, I think like in June, and then we had prom in January. And at the time, I came to realize that prom in those traditional schools is, you guys have seen elite prom, right? Mm-hmm. You have seen how the internet is in shambles because of a helicopter. Like, prom was a big deal. And so my dad gave me money, but the money was like not enough. And it's things that don't matter. So you can't go and tell your dad, oh, daddy, I want to rent the limousine. This wasn't things like I could go and tell him that he had given me for a dress, a reasonable amount, but the dress I wanted was something else. So I used like half of it on prom, really silly. And then going out during the holidays, starting a few businesses. That's what I used it on.
Smart. I wouldn't say like you.
It wasn't smart.
You could have. I don't know, a dress. I think it's meaningful. Going to the village. Yeah, those are all good things. Good choice. Is there anything about poetry in Uganda that we've not talked about? I might not have asked it as a question like what are the challenges that poetry go through, but I brought it as an example of something you've talked about. But is there something that I've not asked you about poetry in Uganda or what poets go through that you'd want to communicate to other poets out there?
Well, it's not really a question. I would say maybe my parting shots on poetry. Yeah. It is the industry or the community or the practice is growing, and that's a very beautiful thing. It's, I would say, a virgin industry. And so right now, as we stand, there are too many monopolies, which is good for the monopolies, but also good for you who's coming in. Like, get the right mentors, associate with the right people, and build. Also, poetry now fits in the value chain of a lot of content creation, leave alone going on stage and performing. But there's advertising, there's communication, health communication, there is corporate performance, there's MCing, there's script writing, copywriting. Like, poets are that set of creatives who are multifaceted. Like, you are armed with everything: performance, writing, gauging your audience, thinking on spot. It's the time for us. Mm-hmm. That's what I would say. Yeah.
All right. The time is now. Besides poetry and everything that you do, I saw on Edie, you spent your Edie. You like to do those vlogs of like, hey, spend the day with me. I like the one you did for, what's the one you did when you were coming for the live show? Hey, get ready with me for the
yeah.
That was pretty good. So you did one for Edie and you make some nice chapati. I like the background.
How do you know you didn't taste?
I saw that you can tell something nice by looking at it. You could smell how nice it was through the video.
Oh, cool. Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that something like a hobby? Like, is that a hobby on the side? You like cooking?
Well, I come from a long line of really good cooks. My mom makes amazing food. My aunties, my mom actually owned a bakery, so I know how to bake and stuff like that. But I love it. I would say it's like my love language. Like, if you come to my home, Bonnie, like, I'm going to put in the effort to cook for you, and make sure you're happy with the meal.
Tuja.
But also, yeah, please. But also, it's like, content-wise, I'm also trying to diversify who people think I am as a creator, as a person online. Yes, it's amazing. I'm a Soet, and that's great, but I'm a human being before all of that. So sometimes I just want to show up authentically, not all the time. Oh, BTS, I'm here, the glitz and glam of showbiz. But sometimes I just want to record myself making a nice meal, share recipes with other people, or going out on a date, or I don't know, taking a walk, just for myself, not to again be put in a box of all the time, this is what you are about, because you're a human being. But yeah, I love cooking. Where did I learn how to make chapatis? My mom and my aunt, Auntie Katho, makes the best chapatis in the world. But it's in the family, it's in the blood. And the voiceover was actually a poet. What's his name? Yeah, Mitch Isabidie.
Oh, wow.
He has a famous poem, Sa Musamvu Zibere Sa Musamvu. So it's incorporating, poetry into everyday life. Yeah.
I like the line you said about showing your audience the other side of you, not them just thinking you were just doing like BTS and all that stuff. Because on my personal Instagram, actually, I don't even think, maybe in the bio they will see the host of the Ghana Boy Talk Show. But on my personal Instagram, it's just my life, like how I live my life. Like I don't even, maybe once in a while I'll put a clip from my podcast, but that's life outside of podcast. The podcast has its own page, and that's where you go to learn about. But here, like, this is my life. This is how I live my life, and people get to see that I do other stuff besides just doing a podcast. Actually, some people don't know. People who see my podcast, they think I do podcast full time, but I have a full time job. Like, I work from 6 to 2. Like, this podcast is just a weekend thing, just a Saturday. But people come to my podcast, they think it's like a full time job, but no. I have a full-time job that I do. It's cool to see other people. I like the part of, like, if I come to your house, you make me a good meal. Whether it's a good meal, vow. Anyway.
For sure. Mm-hmm.
On top of that, too, you also like music. And one time, you posted a clip. You were doing Chitaka's Nothing. I like that song. Nothing, the cover by Chitaka.
My days.
And he was on the podcast here, and I got to interview him to just go behind his brains. I watched
it.
You did? Yeah.
I like... Anyway, let me not simp in public, but yeah. His music, his vibe in general. Cool guy. Hopefully, I can do a collabo with him.
Chitaka.
If you're watching,
this message is coming to you. You're good. Tell him.
Yeah, my name is Angel. I'm a guitarist. I read music. I'm not a problem in studio. And I do some solid work. I'd like to collab with you, Elijah Chitaka. Yeah.
Chitaka, you know what to do next.
That's my pitch. My elevator pitch.
Let's make this happen, Elijah. Chitaka is a cool guy. Ever since I hosted him on the podcast, like, he taps in, we talk on WhatsApp, and he's a cool guy. I like his vibe. But yeah, you were doing his cover of Nothing, which was pretty dope. And also something I picked out from the video is like how you listen to music to prepare for your exams. That's crazy that you talked about that. I was gonna ask you about it. Like, I like listening to background music when I'm reading, and when I didn't know why I liked it till I watched your video. When you explained it, that when you sit in the exam, you remember the song, and that will help you remember what you studied. I was like, oh, so that's what I was doing without knowing it. How did you figure that out?
Yeah. This podcast has made me so happy because you actually watch my content.
I do.
But there's a thing called the World Memory Olympics where like people actually compete in who has the best memory. So in high school, I was struggling a lot to pass. Not to pass. But I'm not a cramming kind of person. So I had to, I don't know, but I landed on a video on YouTube and it was talking about the World Memory Olympics and I read about it. I won't lie to you that I know what it does inside your brain. But yeah, it helps with retention of things where you attach a memory to something. So it can be location, it can be a melody. So let's say I'm reading, I don't know, social cognitive theory, and I'm listening to Nothing by Elijah Chitaka. In a way that whatever I'm reading becomes connected to that song and one in the same. So you know how it's easy to remember a song lyric, but all of a sudden it's hard to remember what you study in school? It's not because we're dumb. It's just understanding how you're conditioned as a human being, how your brain is conditioned, your subconscious and your conscious. It's actually really interesting. Like, our brains are so cool. But yeah, it was something that, you know, in high school, how like, I don't even know why they make us feel that way, that it's the end of the world if you fail an exam. But I was in a very competitive school, and I was like, I need to prove my point. So let me find a way, find my means. And for me, and you know what's so funny? I was in a boarding school, so we didn't have access to phones or whatever. But I was in A-level, so I would go to the computer lab and I would listen. I swear on my eyebrows, I would listen to 3 songs. Okay, by Adekunle Gold, Pretty Girl by Adekunle Gold, and some other song. Friends by Gabsy. And those are the 3 songs that took me through my A-level in terms of memory. Because that's all I had access to. So yeah, it's just something I picked up on YouTube, and I tried it, experimented, and it works for me. Yeah.
That's really cool, because I did the same. It might not be the same exact, but like I always could not concentrate. I could not focus without music.
Yeah.
And you would think like music would distract you, but like actually playing music in the background would help me focus and like read
blocks.
Yeah. It's that was crazy to think about. And now I just remembered that before the cameras went off, I had switched to asking about your jewelry, and I was telling people the jewelry that you had, we didn't even finish that. I was like, yes, that's why I need to bring that back. So like, you have the nice jewelry, your necklace, your earrings, and the rings on the hand. And then you had a clip of that actually with your friend, how like you can, I think she was asking you, why do you have a job or something like that? And then you started doing this craft.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the side of you of making crafts. Man, you do everything.
Yeah. It's weird, but I guess that's who I am.
Yeah.
Multi-potentialite. Well, jewelry, it started, I really like African jewelry. One, because I don't like wearing fake things. So like, until I can afford to wear real gold, I'm not going to go downtown and buy something that looks like gold. So for me, my alternative was like, I can't afford gold. So let me just go to the craft village and get real sisal or real brass or real beads made by a real Maasai person. That's what I can afford right now. But it's also something that I love. And then with time, it's a way that I started to brand and associate myself with. And it was specifically the cowrie shell. You know, that thing that used to be money? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it got to a point where like people would go, like I'd have friends travel and then they go to a craft village and they're like, oh my God, Angel, we found a cowrie shell. Can I bring it for you? So it became now like, okay, this is branding. And also with the whole, because I'm Pan-African, also the music that I do, the being of Soetry is very rooted in my identity as an African. So it became a tool for expression, but also branding. And then along the way, people started asking me, Angel, where do you get it? Because there are also people who sell Afrocentric jewelry, but basically want to exploit their customers. And then for me, who knows the inner workings of the craft village? You know, I know the pop-up villages. I go like every Friday and I walk through pop-up craft villages in Kampala. I'm like, no, this thing is beautiful. It came from Rwanda. Yeah, they're selling it to you at, I don't know, 50K. But me, I get it for 15K. So people are like, oh, Angel, please, when you go next time, here's money. Buy for me. And then I was like, oh, that's a business idea right there that I'm sitting on. So then I said, you know what, let me go and outsource pieces that I think the people in my circles, the people that follow Soetry would like to, then have. And then I said, okay, let me start Kente Brass, which is outsourcing affordable African jewelry from all over East Africa. And yeah, spreading the message while making a little money off of it.
Akakalango mukaulide. That's an ad right there. I like it because I think your outfit was really good on the live show. It was amazing. Like, I think I saw you had those cowrie shells on top of it. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's like a signature. It's like people know you through that. Like people can tell you from the way like you dress or something like that.
You dress. Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'm done with all the questions that I'd got for you, but I'm not done with the podcast. It's not and that's why it was funny when you told me at the beginning, like, so can I get a script or are we gonna wing this? And I was like, no, I don't wing stuff, but with my podcast, I wanted it to be different. Like, I don't even like the word interview. I like conversation. I'm gonna invest my time to do a research about my guests and what I want them to talk about. And all I want for my guests is just show up, because these are things about their lives. These are things that they do. So it's not something that somebody has to cram overnight. It's like, okay, he's going to ask me about this. I need to answer him about this.
True.
Those always got me intimidated and nervous. And when I show up after like I crammed, it's like exams. I just want to be there. I just want to be free. Let's talk. There's no wrong answer. There's no perfect answer. It's pre-recorded. If there's something that came out not wrong, you just say it again and nobody will know. But even if it was live, it's a live conversation. We did a live podcast and I didn't send you guys questions. I just told you guys to show up and we did it. Like, that's how I like it, because I feel like it makes people comfortable and to feel at home.
I agree.
I got 3 questions. These are the final questions on the podcast. I ask everybody that I brought on the podcast. One of the questions is, what's a life lesson you've learned in life to this point?
Wow. What's a life lesson? This is going to sound textbook, but there's no other competition than the person you were yesterday. I don't know if that makes sense. As in,
deep.
There's absolutely no need to look on your left and on your right to see, hey, Bonnie is doing this. Even me, I should do this. Like, it's about you and self-improvement. And once you focus on that, that's when the actual growth begins. Like, competition outside of you is a scam, a very big scam. Yeah, there are many, but that's the one that is.
That's deep. That's a deep one. What gets you excited about life?
What gets me excited about life? I think recently, there are different things, but recently it is like I wake up with the fact of, I'm one step closer to achieving this dream. And that excites me, you know? Or I'm one challenge closer to achieving this dream. Like, there's an assurance of, my motto is Soetry to the world. So that's the goal, Soetry to the world. So every day I wake up, it's like another chance to walk towards it. And sometimes it's very hard. And that's the one thing that like gets you through, you know? Yeah, so there's that.
The final question. Who would you like to see on this podcast next as a guest? And you're going to help me connect me to that person to be our next guest on the podcast.
Wow. It's a lady. Has she been on this pod? Kamanzi Ruth.
No, she's not.
No? Yeah, you should have her on. She's something. Like, her perspective is woo. Next level. Yeah.
I like it. I like people who have different perspectives of life, because I appreciate people with different perspectives of life. Actually, people take that in a wrong way, where if you don't believe what they believe, they see as an enemy. But it's okay for somebody to believe what they believe. It just makes you different, and you can learn from what they believe, or even if you don't agree. Yeah. So I like listening to other people.
Can I give you another person? Oh, there's only one person.
Bring them. Who is another person?
because when you talked about having different beliefs from another person, I said Kamanzi, she's great, but I said because she's also a creative. But there's another person, he is called Uwawele Don Casey. Now that's a person who will shake the center of your thought process. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, so we'll reach out to them and then have them on the podcast. And it was amazing to talk to you. I knew it was going to be like a great conversation.
Yeah.
Just to hear your perspective, your life, your journey, what you've been through. I think a lot of people follow you maybe, but they've never listened to stories about your journey, how you started, what you're doing. So it's a good opportunity for the world to get to connect with you. And I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me as well. Thank you for my refreshments as well. And for this, this is great. I've always wanted.
I saw somewhere that you're going to release an album. I think it was a comment on
yes.
TikTok. Tell us about.
Yeah, I'm working on an EP. It's been a long time coming. Yeah, I'm working on an EP, just an EP of purely Soetry, just to get it out there. And a book as well. There's too much.
Bring it.
Yeah.
We're here to support.
A collection of poetry.
We're here to support any way you want to support. If you ever want to come back on the podcast to talk about something, those are always open.
Oh, wow.
You just hit me up. It's like, hey, Bonnie, I got a thing on my head. I want to talk. Oh, no, I'm not letting you go. I'll find somewhere to put this. I had one question that I forgot to ask you. On the podcast, I've been running this series of questions. It's the same question to different people to listen to their perspective. There's been a hot topic, and maybe you saw a clip of, I don't know if you did. I hosted Ayeza Bridget, and she was talking about how girls ask money from guys, or girls expect guys to give them money. Either you're dating, either you what. There's that mentality or entitlement of girls expecting money from guys.
Yeah.
What is your perspective on that money thing in a relationship from girls? And how have you seen it in Kampala?
Oh, my days. I hope the Twitter police don't come for me. But, I mean, first and foremost, whatever the situation may be, as a woman, have your own money. Like, that's something that, have your own money and be resourceful, be self-sustaining. No matter how secure the relationship may be self-sustaining. And I think that should be like, how we have Newton's first law. Like, that's it. Just have your own money as a woman and as a human being, because there's nothing as dehumanizing as poverty. There's nothing as sad as not having money. Like, even it can be for essentials, but imagine you wanting to go out for brunch with the girls, and that you being able to do that is another person's decision or another person's mood away. The culture around women asking men for money, it's case by case, but in my opinion, I find it very unclassy. Like, if you have to ask, I don't know, it's just not classy, in my opinion. I just wouldn't recommend, wouldn't be put in that position. If he wants to give you, amazing. But if he doesn't, amazing as well. Of course, when you bring in the dynamic of a relationship, that's you're supposed to be your provider and things like that. Those are dynamics that you discuss case by case. There are some households or some relationships where it's flipped, where it's now the guy who's asking for kameza, So it's case, when it comes to relationships, I really steer away from generalization, because human interaction is a case by case thing. But for me, the first principle is have your own money. And just my personality type is like, I don't know if this is toxic, but don't, like, as in, I'm not, there are certain things don't ask for. If you want to do your nails, be in position to do them yourself. If he offers, amazing. If he doesn't, you can still do your nails. If you want to travel, be in position to travel. If he offers, great. If he doesn't, book your flight still. And it shouldn't be a problem. But yeah, there are those dynamics. It's case by case. But men are providers. They are. The men in the... Yeah, men are providers. So provide, bro. Please provide. Yeah, that's my opinion.
I like it. And I think I agree with you, what you said. Even me as a man, I don't want to be in a position where I have to depend on somebody else for something. That's a mentality for me. Like, I don't care if it's my dad. I don't care if it's my mom. I just hate being in that position where... Because what if that person says no? Then I'm not going to do what I want to do because they say no. You know, I don't want to be in that position. And I want to be able to have my own. And if it happens that I really need it and I can't get it, maybe next time you work a little bit harder.
Yeah.
And then you get it. So, but yeah, Angel, that was the final question I forgot to ask you. Hey there, my name is Bonnie Chibuka, the podcast host of the Ugandan Boy Talk Show. Thanks for watching and listening to my podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe. Also, leave a feedback on this podcast because that's how we grow. Thank you very much and be blessed.